welcome to the Free to Succeed podcast. My name's Samuel. I'm co-hosting with Dylan right next to me, and today is going to be a really fun episode. I'm excited to dive into this. Dylan, do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going through today and what today's going to be all about?
Yeah, so I was kind of doing some research. I'm in the process right now of building a brand. It's going to be a seasoning business, different barbecue seasonings.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, well, with that and also with this podcast we're doing, I'm like, hey, I want to learn a bit more about brand building, about what it means to have a brand, to be a brand. And so today we're going to be talking about brand building. I did a little bit of research and I looked up, I found a little post from the Harvard business website. And then someone had outlined 7 different steps to building a brand. And they're not just like steps like, hey, go on this website and do this. It's not like, exactly.
It's not like start your sole proprietorship, start your this.
Yeah, it's not like that. This is more of who is your brand? What does it represent? What does it look like? How does it sound? How does it feel? And so
like the emotional, actual, like non-physical parts of the business, right?
Yeah. Because I think certainly what I forget about as I'm doing this, and I haven't really done a lot of this, but I think you've definitely done a bit of it more with what you're doing with your personal training brand. But what I don't realize, and social media is kind of a good outlet of this, is like people, like the algorithm people, they respond to this stuff. Like they actually respond to people that know what their purpose is.
Yeah.
They actually respond to people that actually know who they are, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and can articulate that properly, and can just be, people are craving real these days for sure. And I wouldn't say social media is a great place to find real, but it is what we have. Social media is what it is. It is the marketing thing of our era, of our generation, whatever. And so if you can throw a bit of like real in there, and that's kind of our idea with our whole podcast too, because we're like all about relatable business, relatable ideas, which another way we're wording that might just be real business, real ideas, real people. So that you could watch or listen to this podcast and be like, oh yeah, I can actually really relate to those guys. That feels real. I think I could actually apply this stuff in my life. It actually is. Yeah, it's real. And so we're hoping to do that with this. And I think that these steps help you define that, because you still need to almost like quiz yourself and think things through a lot, and like if you don't know what your brand is or who your brand is, you won't really be able to properly represent it without knowing
there's
that.
There's been countless times where, I've worked with certain clients, and before we'd even sign up, they would ask me like, so why are you doing this? Like,
right. That's a big one. Yeah.
I'm really curious what led you to do personal training, and they ask it very honestly and openly, but imagine I didn't have an answer, right?
Yeah.
Because I do, right? And I do know for myself, but imagine I had to come up with something on the spot because I really didn't think of it. I was just trying to make money.
Yeah. So right? A good example of this, though it kind of, obviously people can get well known without knowing this question. They can be good at other things, and that can work. And so one example of that I'm thinking of as you're saying this is actually Mr. Beast, and he admits it fully. He's like, I don't have a good answer to that question. And he was on the Theo Vaughn podcast recently, and I watched that one. And he was talking, and Theo Vaughn asked him a question like, so you're doing all these crazy things. It's so much work, so much effort. He's like, he's like working like countless hours, always kind of in work mode. That's all he really does. YouTube is his whole life, like he says. And then he's asked a question. He's doing all these philanthropy things.
Philanthropy, yeah.
And he's philanthropic is the word I was looking for. Things, and he's trying to clearly he's trying to better the world. You say, and then it's like, hey, well. And he's not perfect, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, just his brand will look that way. Yeah. So he gets asked a question, like, what's your motivation? Why is it? And then he just like, I just don't have an answer. Just like, I don't know. His answer literally is just, it's more fun to help people than to not. And like, okay, well, it's not very, so he hasn't thought about it. And I think a good example of why he hasn't thought about it is because he is overworking himself, never actually taking a chance to take a step back and think about what he's doing and why he's doing it, and look at his self and his motivation, his life. And I'm not even judging his motive at all here. I'm just saying he doesn't even know what his own motive is. In other words, not very much self-awareness, or not very much time to reflect, and probably due to the hyper overworking that he does, which would totally make sense that he would be like that. And so it's just, I think no matter whether you do become famous and like Mr. Beast, and so you don't necessarily have to have this stuff, because he became very famous, so he's pretty odd example. He's what he's doing is just people try replicating it over and over again, and it doesn't quite work.
I think that there are things that maybe if Mr. Beast sat down and really thought about, there are things that he wouldn't do or things that he would avoid doing because it would make less money. Because at the end of the day, he probably has certain things he really, really likes doing and things he likes doing less. And there's probably a lot of tedious stuff that has to get done. Like they had their gaming channel for a long time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure he actually really, really enjoyed that.
Did they stop it? Or?
Yeah, they stopped it.
I didn't know that.
They don't really do the gaming channel anymore, and I'm sure that's because he just doesn't have time to game anymore,
and it wasn't enough views or enough
money,
and worth it. And
just like their Reacts channel, they had a Reacts channel where they'd be sitting together. They'd
just fun.
And stuff. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Probably didn't bring in enough money, and it was too much of their time.
Yeah.
And their time through that channel was maybe bringing in $10,000. Yeah. But maybe they're like, Mr. Beast, for your time, you could be breaking $1 million.
Yeah, and also how many views and all this kind of stuff, and to build other things, and whatever. Whether the motive is is money or whether it's another motive, he always kind of claims it's not really about money. It's more about just growing the channel and growing. But even growing the channel and growing the videos means money. So it all connects.
Means needing more money.
We're not saying that he's just some greedy asshole. He might be doing it for a really good.
But his motive, it requires more money.
Right? Yeah. So
to make your dream possible, it means you need to make as much money as possible.
Whereas, what is your life? Is this what you are exactly wanting? And then when you're as big as he is, it's like, if I was in his shoes, why wouldn't you do more things that you're wanting to do, and things that line up with whatever happens to be your purpose, your personal motive? And so, using that as a segue here for you then, Sam, if I was to ask you to define your purpose of your brand, now obviously you have a life purpose as more things to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, because brands have to be, if I'm right in this, more specific. They can't just be like, oh yeah, my purpose is just to help the whole world. It's which is kind of Mr. Beast's answer. It's it's a little too vague. What is your brand's purpose? What does your brand do? What is the purpose of your brand?
Yeah, well, so for SFit, which is the name of my brand, SFit Personal Training, Superior Fitness, Sam Fitness, it's kind of the overarching. While I'm here,
they all start with S.
While I'm in it, yeah, exactly. It's while I'm in it, it can be Sam Fitness, but while I'm less involved, it's more Superior Fitness.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so realistically, that business is the primary goal of it is to help people, and the specificity of it is through fitness, wellness, lifestyle. Excuse me. And that can look like a lot of different things for different people. For some, it can be that they don't understand nutrition. For some people, it can be they don't understand fitness. And it's me teaching them a lifestyle that they can live that actually includes the things that they enjoy, right? Some people enjoy drinking out with friends and on a certain weekend, going out and having a good time. Some people, it's having these family get-togethers where they eat food that's not good per se, but it's being able to live a lifestyle that they actually want to enjoy while having their fitness and health move in the direction that they want for their health, right? Someone wants to lose weight, but they also don't want to sacrifice being able to go out with some guys that they really like spending time with, right?
Yeah.
And it's finding that balance and that medium where they can actually do both and still lead towards their goals. And it's learning how to make the right choices. And maybe that's through different drinks. Maybe that's through acknowledging yourself. And maybe that's not feeling so guilt and brought into social pressures. And it's that, but then also just even scoping out a little bit more. It's just typically helping people who are in their late 20s to 30s and have kind of lost their way with themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's bringing them back into the lifestyle that they want to live and finding out why they actually want to live that type of lifestyle.
But it's really good to describe what is one example of a person. So when you're saying these things, one example of a person is a person not much unlike myself who he's just you're starting to get into your 20s and now you're starting to I just got married and definitely I've gained a few pounds over the last year, and I'm not by any means fat, but I'm also not quite as fit as I'd like to be. And then I look at I still want to be able to hang out on the weekends with friends, and I still want to be able to have fun with and do things like that, not have to worry about always I'm not the person that's ever going to be getting the app to count everything I eat and track every single bit of food. I'm just never going to do that. Some people might, but I know I never would. So I need something that's a bit more simple, a bit less strict and fussy. And so a person like me, that would fit it. Another person that's not like me would be and I know you have quite a few people that are like moms. And so, for example, she's a mom, she's busy, she has to cook for kids. Sometimes those meals aren't always going to be healthy, and she doesn't always want to make a separate meal for herself, and it's going to be a lot of work. So some days, whatever. And so just normal life people that are just like, like the average mom that you see that has kids that play hockey, or a 20-year-old guy who, or in his 20s or 30s, and he's like, just trying to start to get a little bit more healthy. He doesn't necessarily want to be, a heavyweight champion or anything. He just kind of wants to be a little healthier. It feels like you're taking the more casual approach on that. Maybe one day you'll adjust and you'll go for more high level stuff, but as of right now anyway, your brand definitely is towards more the casual person.
Yeah, and that's what I feel the most passion towards working with. I know a lot of people, when I was in school for personal training, a lot of the people in the class were like, well, I want to work with this special type of person. I want to work with this. I want to work with MMA fighters. I want to work with basketball players. I want to work with, and I'm just like, honestly, the people I find the most satisfaction and the most genuine like reward and feeling of just meaning from working with is the people like that.
Their lives are actually changed.
Yeah, the people whose lives are actually changed. I've had multiple people tell me, like, Sam, you're really making an impact in the town. Like, I actually know a lot of people that you have helped change and like change the life of. And I'm like, I'm changed just because of the people that you're actually working with. And I was like, wow, that's crazy to hear, right? And I love that feeling more than the feeling of personally, and again, maybe this will change 5-10 years down the road, but personally then the feeling of, wow, I helped someone compete to get on stage and to win a competition, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of like some extreme male bodybuilding where they're trying to like, I have to focus on these, like, okay, how do I get them to make sure that they have the least water weight in them for their stage readiness show, and how do I make sure that they're not like overeating so they look bulky on stage. Like, I care less about that nuance and more about the nuance of someone's life.
Those are very vanity marker kind of things, competition based things, which are all cool. It's like a sport. Yeah, it really is a sport.
Yeah,
really,
exactly. So. And I care just more about changing someone's life and actually working with someone through their life struggles. Because if I look at my parents, if I look at people around me, I always saw those things growing up where I would see that I'm like, man,
people are not very healthy these days.
Yeah, and people felt uncomfortable doing things, right? Like, you see the people who are at the pool with their shirts on because it's not. It's not because they just don't want to take their shirt off. It's because they're self-conscious about issues that are causing them to feel that way.
Yeah. And so, like, I guess relating this back to our podcast a bit, like if I'm envisioning the type of person that we're going after, if I think about that, I really see it similar to what you're saying. Like, I would be far more, rather than like, being able to help some, entrepreneur really grow their business to the next level, like that would be cool.
10K to 30K type
or 100K to $1 million, or who knows.
Sure,
It depends on how big it gets, right?
Of course.
But like all these things are very cool, and I would totally it'd be cool to work with people like that in the future. That would involve a lot more than just a podcast. So that would involve like really like working with people then. But just on the more base, simple level, if anything, just somebody that's like right now listening to this while they're driving a truck and like they're just doing deliveries, because a lot of people drive truck, listen to podcasts, or someone that's like, maybe they're stocking shelves, they can put an earbud in and listen to a podcast. They just have a regular job, and then this podcast helps to motivate them for one of two things. One, to just be like, what, because we've talked about it lots in every episode, and we kind of keep bringing it up, is like how to push people in careers, in jobs, to grow into their job higher, or rather to get, whether that means going to a different job or the same job. We've talked about that a few times. Yeah. That kind of stuff. And if that motivates someone one day, be like, when they feel, because I know even when I'm doing my own job myself, I often feel just, like I just kind of just get done. And with their more repetitive jobs and stuff, I'm the type of person that needs a lot of variety. And so repetitive things over and over again drive me crazy. So people like that, they're just stuck in that rut, and they're like, they listen to this like, man, this brought me up a little bit. This motivates me.
A little bit of energy to maybe put a little bit of a pep in their step for the rest of their work.
Exactly. Like that. And then that makes a difference. And the next thing you know, they're like, hey, yeah, I really, honestly, like when I started listening to your podcast, and kind of kept following it. And then not long after, I got like this promotion, or I quit my job, or I left my job. I got a much better one, because just the way I was able to present myself in an interview, I was able to do much better. And just, you kind of gave me that kick I needed to go do that. Depending on what you need, depends on the job, but
it's almost different. Like we can be that friend who tells you what you need to hear.
Yeah, exactly, and then gives you ideas of things to think about, and then that could also connect to where maybe it means you keep your job and that's fine, but you're starting like a side thing.
Exactly.
Whatever that side thing may be.
I mean, like for example, even I remember. I think you should remember this. I started a small thing when I was back in high school, end of high school times. I was buying and selling like high-level shoes, expensive
Yes,
shoes.
yeah, you made a few $100
Right?
on that, right?
Yeah. I used StockX to resell my shoes on, and I was just working at Co-op. All of a sudden, I got a little bit of inspiration to try this interesting thing out because I'm like, man, I really like.
There's so many things out there.
I like the idea of having these shoes, and I could buy them and I could get them in at base price, and then I was able to resell them, and it was really cool. I got to have my hands on a bunch of new types of shoes, and then also make some money on the side while I did it.
And ultimately, you end up just like buying keeping a couple nice ones that you liked, and that basically paid for it. So the end of the result was you got some crazy awesome shoes that you would never have had otherwise.
Exactly.
And so that's cool. Like, and then that teaches you entrepreneurial skills, and it teaches you different things, which are helpful. Like it's like going to school for a little bit, but it costs you nothing, and you got some cool shoes out of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so just like it can be as small as that especially when you're younger. Or even when you're old, doesn't matter when you start something like that. And then it can go bigger and bigger. And basically, it's like, we're not going to be here giving you a whole list of ideas. That's not what our podcast is about. We're not really here to just list off ideas of what you could do to start a business. There's so many out there. Our hope, and I think it's just far better anyway to push this, is for you to go and be creative.
To push individualized thinking.
Yeah, because like in today's day and age, if we're telling it to you on a YouTube video or on a podcast, it's already being done by tons of people.
Yep.
And just so you know though, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel, that is usually a really great place to start. But people often say that that's just that this is it. It's just like one good, like Amazon drop shipping. It's like go do Amazon. It's like don't do it. But like
affiliate marketing,
whatever it is. And I'm sure that there are ways to use affiliate marketing or even drop shipping, but maybe in more unique ways.
Yeah.
And like obviously a good example of like the drop shipping thing is like to actually like, create a product and like to work with the manufacturer to customize a product that no one else now has, because you worked with the manufacturer, you went back and forth with them for like months figuring out to make the product, because like especially if you always start with something that like something that you're good at. I heard a story recently from someone that started like, because pickleball is getting huge.
Yep.
He started a pickleball company. And then he plays pickleball, and that's the only reason why. He's like, I play pickleball, and he already was a business owner. He had a different business. So, I'm going to start a pickleball company now, too, because why not? And that's his biggest company now, I believe, or at least it sure seems like that. It's doing amazing.
You told me about
it. Has like a top selling, it's called like Professor Pickleball on Amazon.
That's great.
So little plug for Professor Pickleball if you're looking for a pickleball racket. But he showed, like, he had a whole video on YouTube about it. He's just talking about how he went back and forth with them. And he talked to probably like 10 or 12 different manufacturers, and he went through like lots of dialogue with them and getting exactly what he wanted and finding the grip to feel this way and all the things, because he's playing pickleball all the time, and he's like, I don't like this about this racket, and all the things he doesn't like, he's fixing them, and they're all small, and if you don't play pickleball much, you probably grab his racket, grab a regular racket, and be like, I don't know. But if you actually played a lot, you'll really notice. And he made a great product, and then he did lots of good marketing, advertising for it, and all the things that you do, and it's a really cool company. I'm like, man, that I almost want to start a pickleball company after that. It was so cool, but that's not my thing really, so I got to think of more, and that's where that's where barbecue seasonings kind of came in to start off with, was because I already have a bit of a food, like I sell food already online. That's the thing I do, and then connecting that, I also love barbecuing, and I love seasonings, and I would actually use them, and I would do stuff with them, and we did a whole like a taste test.
We did a whole event.
I did a barbecue. I did a big taste test of all the things. It was really fun.
So fun.
And I'm like, that's so cool. I could totally make content around that and see myself doing that and really enjoying it and meaning it. And this is being like a real thing for me.
Well, see, that leads me to say, what I don't want people to do from this podcast at all is to get into a business for the sake of getting into a business. And more specifically, I mean these online people who just start something. It's like some sort of MLM thing, right? Or some sort of thing that they can just get into instantly and become an instant expert. I have seen it countless times on Instagram, and that a person decides that it's someone who has a bunch of time on their hands that's probably a little bit more financially tight and is like, man, I just need some extra money, right? Yeah. Like, how can I make some extra money? And all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's this business that I can join, and I can get other people to join me or do this other thing. And I can start making money because people are buying this product, and I can start getting discounted product from them. Like it's this whole thing. And so, for example, on my Instagram, there's this one person who all of a sudden started posting about this this product that they could start buying. And it's like, oh my goodness, you can finally start buying this stuff from me. I'm starting to invest in myself and really get passionate about this business that I'm a part of now. And you can buy this stuff from me, and you can start to see your life change. And they're just an instant expert. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
They are an instant expert in this completely arbitrary field. that they just decided, I'm finally going to start doing something for myself, and now you can get these results too, right? And now I feel like my coaching business gets almost sucked into the same level of these people. Whereas I've had a genuine passion for this for years, and I'm building my own brand from nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas these people are starting this thing where someone else convinced them to do this, or someone else took advantage of them, or someone else told them about it, and now they're joining under someone else, and now they do this whole thing, and now they're like, this is my business that I'm so passionate about, and yet it wasn't even something that they even thought of doing 6 months ago. It wasn't even something they cared about doing at all, and there's no life in it, right? And they're just trying to make a dollar or two.
And maybe there's one small correction where I know what you're saying, but I think one thing that might get misunderstood was like, it's not that it's not wrong to have never thought of doing it, but it should be connected to something that's a part of who you are already. Because like you said, like
in my opinion, yeah.
Because the only misunderstanding that might have had was like you had to have thought about doing it for a long time. Like no, you don't. But be part like for you for the gym thing. Like it would have been okay if you had never thought about being a trainer, but you're just a big into the gym and you're big into fitness.
Way, yes,
and you never even thought about doing it as a business, and all of a sudden. All of a sudden, boom! Because that's what happened for me for my seasoning company. Yes. I never thought about doing a seasoning company. It was just a spur of the moment. But I do love barbecuing, and I do barbecue all the time, and I'm known for that's what I do. I barbecue. Especially when I was single, I literally just ate barbecue probably like 4 or 5 days a week. Like I just all winter long, -30, I'm barbecuing. Like it just didn't matter. I love barbecuing.
Yeah.
And I love seasonings. And so it just was a thing I always had done. So it just totally made sense.
Yeah, that's a good correction point to what I was saying. Because I did mention that. I was like, you should have to have thought about it for a while. But that I guess...
More so be in it. Just whatever it is. Yeah. Like not necessarily as a business, but just as a thing. Kind of like this guy, the pickleball thing. He was playing pickleball for quite a while. Like,
that's the
really
thing.
loved pickleball. And
it's just like the people who are successful and find long-term success and satisfaction in their business is people who often do something that is related to or connected to something that's a part of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It can be adjacent. It doesn't have to be your favorite hobby, right? Because obviously we talked about in the last episode how a tattoo artist started doing it as a business and found out they didn't like it anymore after a while, right? So it can be something adjacent. I mean, you are obviously not a barbecue chef.
No.
Right?
I'm not a cook, really, at all.
You don't do that,
but I like to barbecue. I'm like casual.
Like barbecue. And so an idea for you to go out and explore was seasonings, and that's perfect, right? And for you, for anyone listening, all of a sudden, if you really, if you're just like, man, I spent some time, learning about this or this, maybe you make websites for certain things you're creative on, and all of a sudden you randomly do that, and all of a sudden you could turn that into something that's really inspirational to you, that is actually building websites and building things, right?
Yeah.
But it's because it's been something that you've done just casually for a long time, right?
It's just been an interest of yours, regardless.
I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he was like, "Yeah, I really like building PCs." He's like, "I built my PC, I built my dad's PC, I built a bunch of my friends' PCs," and he was like, "I actually really enjoy it." And I was like, and all of a sudden that guy could get inspired to create something that's related to tech, computers, PCs, right?
He could do reviews of different specs and do that kind of stuff.
It could be something
make videos where he takes computers apart and put it back together.
And that's real, right?
And then he gives advice and stuff, and he can turn that into who knows what, right?
Exactly.
So, and that's a cool thing. That is why I'm starting to not hate social media all the way anymore. Is for the fact that like when I see a guy like I found this podcast with this guy talking about his business where he literally just like he did one with Mike Tyson for the Mike Tyson fight, and he does like really high level photography of toys. Of different things, and like the photos look amazing. Like they look crazy. If we had the capability of like showing pictures, we would show a picture maybe, but
not yet.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll figure it out by then. Who knows? But like it's just these things are so cool, and like he has like the scenes and everything.
So what was the part about Mike Tyson?
So like for the Mike Tyson fight, he did one with Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson was there. So
no, the toy of Mike Tyson.
Oh, it was a toy of Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
nice.
During the fight, because it was just relevant,
timely,
right?
Yeah.
And I got him a lot of views, right? Like he has like millions, and he has like deals now, like brand deals with like Hasbro and like different big companies. A sport company too, like I forget if it was like Nike or whatever. He has all these brand deals now and stuff because he gets.
Do you remember the name?
I have it saved in my Instagram, but I can't remember it at this exact moment. I'm not that great with that kind of stuff, but. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's just the point is like that's just so like he just takes pictures of toys.
You know how niche that is?
It's so niche,
Right.
and that just shows me again like there are really and like I know people like that in town. They're like collectors, for example. They could totally start to have fun with that and like going in and just like doing some pictures of their different things that they collect, and they could turn it into some kind of a show that they enjoy doing, where they talk and review different things that they buy, and then
There's a TikToker whose entire thing, he's like a 65, 70-year-old man, maybe even older. Maybe he's in his 80s, but he does milkshake Mondays.
yeah.
He every single Monday he makes a milkshake and he posts it, and he uses a milkshake from like the 1980s.
Oh, yeah.
He uses a blender from the 1980s, and he literally Justin Trudeau was just on it.
What? Why?
Because Justin Trudeau wanted to be on a Milkshake Monday.
That's hilarious.
And so he has
This
a bunch.
old guy.
He makes money from TikTok. He makes money from just different little deals, right? Different little affiliate links.
Yeah.
That's where affiliate links can become a really big thing for you, right? Once you become
for
big
sure.
and you
And
have-
then of course it just is a platform to launch anything.
Exactly.
Anything
And-
you're interested in, that you can make as a product
so
you
he
can
does
launch
this-
or a service.
He does that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's just another super niche example. Some dude just like
Yeah.
some old guy's like, man, I love milkshakes. And then maybe one of his friggin' grandsons was like, you should start posting your milkshakes online, right? He's like, man, your milkshakes are so good. You should start posting your milkshakes. And now the dude has millions of followers.
Yeah, it's
because
so
he
cool.
posts milkshakes.
Yeah, that's the cool stuff about this. I really do like that a lot. Okay, so we'll move on a little bit here. I'll keep on asking you some questions here. So this next one is not quite as direct, so I'll kind of explain it for a second. So it's audit your personal brand equity. And so the idea of auditing what your brand is I guess the main point of this is basically to use like words that are actually more specific. So not just be like, like for example, I'm a smart person. Like, okay, that's pretty general. But like if you say that you're street smart, that gives you like think about smart person and what does that bring to mind? It's kind of like, vague general things about what a smart person might look like. If you think street smart, you think of this person that's like on the street that like, knows how to handle situations and deal with stuff. It brings out a whole picture. You know what I mean? That word versus that. So what would be some of these like words that really describe what your brand is? What would be some, can you, I know it's kind of on the spot, but can you come up with a couple words that would be like that would actually bring about like a bigger vision of kind of what your brand is?
Okay, so in terms of how I treat people and how I run my business with my clients as a whole, I would say that the way I work as a coach is very, it's very forgiving. Like it's a lot more lenient because the type of people I work with. So I make sure that my lifestyle and my coaching process is lenient and understanding.
So what,
in that type of way.
What would be? I'm trying to think of like what would a word be that would describe a type of person that's lenient, understanding, forgiving. What's like a bigger word to describe that type of person? If you look at a person and they're very like they're very encouraging, they're very
They're just empathetic.
Right. But is
Empathetic.
there a word that's like that like kind of like encapsulates
encompasses it all? Yeah.
all of that? Like what would that person be? That would be like a. I'm trying to help you out here. I'm trying to think because I know this is more difficult. It's just you have to really and these are the kinds of, by the way, like we're struggling here. Just this is part of the video.
Yeah.
But like also like these are the questions that are good to ask yourself because it makes you think. Okay, well, really, because like as we're thinking here, this is actually the work. This is why these questions matter. Like getting the word itself isn't the most important part. It's the process getting you there is going to help you to think of all these things and really have to break and boil it down to something. Which is why these questions I think are interesting. We may not get a perfect one right now, but it's just the idea is just to take time and especially I'd imagine writing and stuff like that and actually having words in front of you and being able to really think about it would be helpful. But you have a lot of descriptive words.
On top of that, as a business coach, as a fitness coach, I'm very analytical. Because all I have to do is I go based off, I'm a results based, right?
Yeah.
So if I look at what I'm doing with my clients, if I look at my clients' weekly check-in, if I look at their result, like I'm doing weekly check-ins later on today, like I'm going to go through all my clients, and the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be like, all right, what was their last week? What'd they do? Okay, I'm going to see a list of their weight, body measurements, this, that, progress photos, right? And I'm going to compare. I'm going to be like, okay, this is us right now. How is this compared to last week, right? Did we show up? Did we not show up? Did we do this? Did we not do that, right? So I'll be able to make decisions based on the statistics that I see, right?
Yeah.
And so in that point, I'm also analytical. So as a coach, analytical would be one word I'd use. I'm going to stick with empathetic because I can't think of it.
That definitely works because you're
greater encompassing. But
and that would connect with our podcast
Lenient.
too. Like with like the word that we use for our podcast is like keyword like relatable, which is like just like a relatable person. That gives a lot of examples when you hear the word relatable.
Yeah.
But it's just like this guy that you that you know that you can trust, you can talk to, and in a certain area, he's an expert in it, but he also makes you feel very welcome, very at home.
Well, we don't use. Are you talking about the podcast or about me?
I'm kind of talking about. I think this is one where they kind of overlap a little bit because we kind of had this connecting point where you're saying how like you're going for this more average person that's just like a really average everyday person that you can relate to, and the podcast also can. So I almost wonder if some of that would kind of be an overlap.
Well,
almost.
I mean, the way that we're talking is we don't like to use these big words that, like, say, for example, we're coming up with these bigger, larger descriptive words for what we do. Yeah. We're not using those generally speaking in our podcast because it doesn't make sense as much for who we're talking to.
No, exactly.
Sense, right? So we're trying to be more of a relatable, we're trying to be less scientific in terms of the type of message that we're conveying because we want to explain it in a way that is generally understood by anyone.
And the words don't necessarily have to be complicated. They're words that just bring you
other thought,
a vision of something. Kind of like, I like their example, like smart versus street smart. It's like that's very much more specific.
Because naturally when someone says smart, I think of a nerd with glasses.
Exactly.
Whereas street smart, I think of someone who's like knows their way around a city, who's potential. I think of a type of person rather than a physical attribute.
Yeah, way more specific, right? And I think a lot of our words we've used are also more specific. So like we are getting the general idea.
Yeah, totally.
I'm just kind of fishing for more as we kind of go with it because it's just kind of fun.
Why not?
It's kind of an exercise almost in a way, just kind of going through it. But no, it's not like I'm saying that the words we've gotten so far don't work. They all work. It's just trying to kind of push it as far as we can, right?
It's where we take this.
Or where we can take it. But yeah, I know, like I really think that like language is a lot more interesting sometimes than we think it is, and like the fact that words really just incite feelings and different emotions and different ideas. Words are very powerful, right? So like, and then obviously like many quotes out there, but like we are what we think, and like that's a big part of it. And then what you think is what you say, and what you say is what can influence what other people think. So therefore, it has like this massive area of effect impact that goes all over the place.
I mean, it's like language is the driving body of understanding, right?
That's all a podcast is. It's all using words, using language. So especially if you're not using the video, if you're just doing the audio, that's all it is.
We really have to convey everything well enough through audio, right? Otherwise, I mean, we're just gatekeeping to the video. That's what we're doing otherwise. But yeah, like if we were, I mean, think of anything, right? And it's kind of obvious to state it out loud, but it's like language is how you express everything, right?
Yeah.
And while you don't typically think of it that way, that's what it is, and that's why so many people don't acknowledge that. Even I've spent so much time of my life not even acknowledging that the words that I say really do change an outcome, right? If you think of talking to someone on the phone about wanting to sign up for a program in some sort of way, right? Yeah. The way that you can talk to them about what a program would look like will influence whether or not they see the value in it.
Yeah, which is why I like conveying that message. Like if you're trying to, whatever, like if you're trying to convey to someone that you're smart, but what they need is someone who's more like more like this street smart kind of smart, not like this nerdy kind of smart, and then you're trying to convey them like, I'm a very smart guy, I'm very good with whatever it is that I'm meaning to do. The guy's like, well, I don't want a nerd, It's like, well, that's not what I mean at all. Exactly. It's like they mean street smart, but they just said the word smart, so it wasn't specific enough. So it's just interesting. I think it's just such a good example of how one simple little change changes the whole thing completely. And someone could be using the word just like he's a smart kid. I think that's a common thing. Okay, but what do you mean smart kid? Like in what way? Like how does that even? It's just far like a well-read kind of a kid. Like okay, that means like more like the book smart, street smart kid, or is it more like a very like creative kind of comes up with these crazy ideas? So like a very imaginative kind of a kid.
Yeah.
Like, in what way do you, and when people say smart kid, they mean any of those things.
It could be everyone, none of them, one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just very vague. And that's why it's good to really just be the moral of the story here with this whole part is just to be specific. And I think we did a pretty good job with that. But
use your language specifically.
It's just, this is the process that you would go through with whatever it is that your thing is that you're trying to define. And so anyway, that would be what it looks like too. And the second one, it is auditing your personal brand. So it's kind of an audit, which is supposed to be a little bit of like a push, kind of poking yourself and prodding it through. So that would be kind of what an auditing of your personal brand would look like.
Yeah.
So
honestly,
basically. So then the third one, and I'm going to actually read this here because it's an example, is construct your personal narrative. So example, your answer to a conversation starter like, where are you from? Could shift from a simple New Jersey, like just answering where you're from, or for us, it's like, Altona, Winnipeg, whatever. And then instead of that, you could say to a very rural part of New Jersey where I spent my childhood hiking mountains and building campfires. How about you? And so like this would be like, for example, whether it's a friend or whether it's a client or whether it's an employer, like you're in an interview. I really imagine myself being interviewed when I heard that question.
Yeah, no, totally.
And being like, so where are you from? Be like, oh, I'm from like a very rural, very small town. It's called Altona. I spent a lot of time out there doing, whatever. Like like just kind of talking about what you do. Like I'm a big, for myself, I have a cabin. I do a lot of hiking and kayaking, that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's really cool. I really like the small town feel because it's just really whatever. It's much more, you can just meet people, know people more.
It encapsulates what
whatever.
you enjoy more.
And just talk about that. And then they get a feel for who you are. What if I just say, oh, I'm from Altona? Like, cool.
They're like, cool, you're from a town that no one's ever heard of. Dope.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Right.
So it really does a lot. It does a lot more when you start to actually have a more of a narrative behind who you are. And like where you, and this is just a classic one, like where you come from. And so like, and obviously that would come into very much into play with your brand. And so like what would be the narrative? I know you've kind of shared a bit about it, but maybe try to like go outside the box a bit with this. Like if I was to, I'm trying to think of an example of a question. So like if I'm talking to you and I'm just a stranger that you kind of met somewhere. Let's say that we were just randomly started talking somewhere in public. Maybe we were both shopping in the mall or something. It's Christmas coming up. Yep. So let's just say we're both shopping and we're all of a sudden we're at the food court and then you're standing next to me and we start all of a sudden chatting for some reason.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I like your shirt or something, whatever. We start chatting for fun, whatever. It's two guys chatting. And then he does the classic, so what do you do? Right. And obviously you're a personal trainer. So the base level, oh, I'm a personal trainer. Oh, cool. And that kind of ends that. But what would be the narrative? What narrative would you give? What story would you give? But a short, like the short version of the story.
What I would kind of go into is instead of just saying, hey, I'm a personal trainer, it's like, I would say, you probably know someone who's overweight and is in their, just got married, is living the life, but they also just like don't really have any time for themselves, right? It's like, you probably know someone like that, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, I change their lifestyle and get them back into the shape they like to be in.
Yeah.
Right.
And so also you're like a coach and you'd be like, kind of, but you also, because you do a lot of accountability. So you might go into the fact that like my goal is really about changing your lifestyle in a way that actually can consistently be that way.
Yeah.
And I'm asking a question for you now, but I'm just saying this is kind of just from another perspective.
Yeah, of course.
It'd be an example of what I would say if I were you. Be like, it's not like the classic, because you're not big into like just doing all these in-person sessions. Like that's not as much your thing. You do a bit of that, but not really. Your real thing is about like changing their life at home and changing their life everywhere.
Yep.
And that's why you have like all the things that you have with like the app and stuff and check-ins and keeping in touch with people on a regular basis in different ways to keep them accountable and all that. And obviously like that's just the practical points, but you would share something that would encapsulate that audience, that more like what you said, like the more just, hey, someone that's like this, right? And like, yeah, of course I do. My uncle's like that or whatever, like, or somehow, or my entire family, or everyone I know is like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and that's what I typically do. Like that's what I have been doing is in that type of scenario. Someone asks me what I do. Yeah. I typically ask them a question of a type of person.
Yeah.
And then they can like, I have that person in my mind. It's like, sometimes they're even like, that kind of sounds like me, right? Sometimes they say that, and I'm like, that's who I work with. That's what I do.
That's your narrative. Yeah, exactly. And it's good because it's just real. It's just what it is. It's not like the infomercial, where you're just like, have you ever thought that you could never lose weight? Well, no more, because today was Sam Fitness.
You'd be shocked how often I see that online.
I can get you down by 30 pounds. And he asked that question. I was like, so what do you do? I can get you down by 30 pounds in 3 weeks. Would you believe me?
I've said that. Or your money back.
Or your money back, man. Could you believe that?
Guaranteed.
Kind of like imagine like the common day evangelist, on the street, being like, buy one, get one free, Jesus,
I actually go up to people on the street and I'm like, do you need training?
Do you know trainer?
Do you know a personal trainer? Do you think you need a personal trainer? That's what I do.
You need Jesus. It's the same thing with, like, if I think about a person that actually is legitimately, now we're going into religion, but we'll just do it for a second here because I just got a thought. Imagining a person, because I used to be a bit more extremely religious in the past. I mentioned that before, whatever, but I'm not going to go too much into that. But definitely I used to be the person I had gone on the street and done that kind of stuff before.
Yeah.
So I know these talking points and I know how fake they are.
Yeah.
And then I think about people that I remember in that area, and like the ones that would actually get cool, interesting conversations were the people who wouldn't do the marketing thing. They would do the more narrative approach and being like, so what are you doing out here? Like, oh, well, we're just, and then they would just kind of talk about like, a big part is like kind of like why they're here. That would be a big part. Like, this is what happened to me in my life, talking about that kind of stuff. And then very much asking that person questions and letting them talk a lot too, and not selling them anything. Never even offering to be like, this is kind of like, if we're going to Christianity, like talking about the impact that God has had in their life, but then also not talking too much, and then really being like the relatable approach. Like, you know someone in your life that's like, just a lot of people in this field are often like struggling with drugs, something like that. So let's just say that, probably know someone in your life that struggled with the drugs or is struggling with drugs and that kind of stuff, right? Like, oh yeah, drugs and alcohol abuse, whatever. So yeah, that used to be me. And then, then maybe this person had joined like, Teen Challenge or whatever, something like that. Like, yeah. And then that really helped me get out of that. And then this is kind of why it helped me, whatever, yada, yada. And then also, and then they may ask, what's been your experience with that? And the person that or maybe you're the person, maybe you're actually struggling with it. And then they start a real interesting, meaningful conversation. It's a thing that can be used in any area of life, I guess is my point, from religion all the way to talking about business.
Yeah. It's interesting, the connection that you can make because you want to just ask, it does follow a lot of areas because you just want to ask open-ended questions, right?
Yeah.
You want to ask things that lead to more conversation, that can lead to maybe a deeper answer.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying, at the end of the day, you're probably trying to find if we're talking about your evangelizing, well, you're probably trying to find the root cause of their issue, right? You're probably trying to find why are they. Because a lot of those people tried, maybe something related to Christianity at one point, but then now they were against it, and that's why they rebuked it and like turned away from it.
Yeah, I thought it was a terrible thing.
Right?
Yeah.
You're
giving it a different view on it.
Right? You're probably trying to ask questions to find out, okay, what happened? Like,
what was so bad about it, and then trying to come to, and that also comes down to critical thinking too, and actually like analyzing a thing.
Yeah.
And then we brought this to religion. We can bring this also to more of like just having a more interesting, because I thought this was like an average person, like having a more interesting conversation with your buddies. Like I know I've had times, and you messaged me the other day actually talking about how you really appreciate having just deep conversations, interesting conversations. Well, you want to know how to have more interesting conversations with your, not only your friends, but also your family, also your spouse, your children, whoever it is, your parents. There's all these people, and those relationships mean a lot. Friends mean a lot to me, but also obviously family is like terribly important, and to be able to have proper conversations with them. This is literally how business overlaps into everyday life stuff, like these kinds of things. Now, of course, we mentioned like the whole salesman approach. People often think this stuff is like some kind of like a 3-step strategy that you have to use. It's not like that. It's more so just like thinking more deeply and using these questions to help you to go deeper. And then because like talking, not so much talking points, but like questions or ideas or thoughts like we're bringing up now are ways to help you go more deep, to get your spouse to know you better, or to get to have a better conversation with your friend that maybe he'll actually share what's going on in his life, and you guys could actually help each other with something. And actually, because that's a big part of, I think, what friends are for, is to actually talk about things when you need them. And if you never do that ever, and you don't know how to do that, well, you just are missing out on a massive thing. And then also this goes into, like we're talking about business and everything else, it connects everywhere, and it's just about having narrative conversations with people where you actually like are sharing a story, sharing a whole idea, going a bit deeper, asking yourself more interesting questions, and trying to respond more interestingly. It kind of connects to the last one we talked about, where like using these words that actually incite a thought, incite like a picture in your head, versus just saying like the word smart, like actually getting more deep with it. So all those things connecting into a narrative that you can use, and that helps you in your relationships, and it helps you in your business and everything.
It's interesting how that works, how that type of critical thinking and just being aware of the conversation, aware of what's happening in the conversation, and being like a good listener as well as a good active engager really does follow you in positive areas, through business, through your personal life, through relationships, through trying to come to an understanding of someone's opinion, right? In every area, just being able to be analytical and like active listen, active engage, and active speak and respond really just is good everywhere.
Yeah, and
it's just a good skill to have.
In a simple word, it's really just critical thinking. And going back to like talking about schools in the past episode, we have a big thing that's missing in our school systems today are teaching people what to think versus how to think. And that's a big thing that's missed. Obviously, you got to teach some things, obviously, directly, but there's also these critical thinking skills, which are very lacking today. And that's a big reason why.
I recently worked with a younger kid on. I was just like teaching him a couple things, and at a job, and I was surprised at how little I got asked how to do things.
Oh yeah.
There was, while this person was good at being hands-on, preferred being hands-on, I was just because for how young he was, I was surprised that he wasn't like asking more questions. Like I would have thought that, he was like, okay, well, I know you don't know exactly how to do this or do that, and I know you're trying to learn because I'm training you.
Right.
I was surprised that there was just not really any push towards asking questions, and I know that there's always people that just don't like doing that, right? But for the type of person he was, I just would have expected him to be asking more questions, because he was very much like, by the book, I want to make sure I'm doing everything right. But yet he still also didn't really ask questions. So it was just an interesting kind of...
Because they don't know how to. They don't really know...
Yeah, that's what I wondered. Yeah,
it seems like that's the thing.
Because he very much was not the type of person that would just like wait for me to give an answer. He wasn't the type of person that would like not want to try things on his own, because he was the first person to talk to people when people walked into the store before I would. He was like, okay, I want to do this, right? But yet, he still just wouldn't ask or wouldn't be curious on if there was anything good or bad about what he did.
People just don't do that anymore. And I see that in business too. And I think back to my first job I ever had at a pizza place. And I remember my boss being more on the side of like, always like when we first had the first show, it was like, oh, they're always very friendly. Oh yeah. So like, if you have any questions, just ask. It's a safe place. Just ask questions, anything you need. Of course, when you ask a question, someone just flips out, and because it's a restaurant environment, especially, and people were not. Yeah. It was not at all what he was saying. It was at all. It was a terrible environment for learning. You couldn't learn at all. If you don't just know, then you just don't know. And if you do it wrong, you get screamed at. Like it was absolutely horrible work environment.
My sister worked exactly in the same place. So.
Yeah. So
I know.
Yeah. So like it's just terrible. And yeah, like so you go through that, and you're just like, this plus school and everything. It just doesn't really teach you to think and ask proper good questions. And so it is a skill that you have to actually challenge yourself. You have to audit yourself like we were doing earlier. You have to really like push yourself and learn how to think. And that's a big part of why I love podcasts, because podcasts just get me thinking.
It really makes you dare to think.
Dare to think. Yeah. Throwback to my first podcast.
Every time I get the opportunity to do
just throw in dare to think. Yeah.
Because it really makes me, it really shows me that was a good name. That was a good name.
It was a cool name, yeah.
Because it's actually a relevant concept.
Yeah, well, I'll throw it in a post somewhere. Like
somewhere.
Well, yeah. Have it'd be like a title of an episode or something.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Actually, that'd be fun.
It's good, yeah. But yeah, like
this would be our first guest episode.
Yeah, if we could get him on,
that would be fun. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's a lot with that, and it's kind of just now tying this into the next part, which still really these all seem to line up together. There are 7 steps for a reason. They kind of always kind of flow into each other. And so the fourth one is about embodying your brand. And so to me, when I heard them talk about, or when I read about this in the article, a big vision that came to my mind was like someone that I really thought was really like a more, they're like mildly famous person that I randomly got to meet one time at this one event I was at years ago. And then I remember going up to them and trying to talk to them, and they just completely, in every way imaginable, they kept walking as I was talking and then just left. Right?
What? Like, I want to know what this
like
is.
The casual kind of things, whatever, and then just kind of kept walking, and then it was gone. And it wasn't like it was like they weren't like massively famous. They're just like mildly well known, and the event had like a few hundred people there. Maybe it wasn't like a thing where it wasn't like like going to like a Matt Rife comedy routine and then he had like his security. He had no security guards. He was walking right through that. It wasn't like he was that famous. So just to get the right vision out.
Yeah,
it was just very much that like very much let down, kind of like a wow, what the heck was that kind of a moment. And this is an example of like, and here they call it embodying your brand. And again, I'm really specifying because I even tempt myself to think that when I hear embodying your brand, it means like always putting on a face or acting. It's not about that. It's about actually, who are you? This guy, who he was an asshole, and who he showed himself to be on stage was this like super loving, kind of a person. And then he was the opposite in real life. Yeah, complete opposite. And so that's just being dishonest. And so it's like you have to embody your brand, and you also have to become your brand. They kind of have to go side to side, because you can't properly embody your brand, and embodying it means when that person approaches you randomly, when you're just whatever it is. Doesn't mean you can't have a bad day. Doesn't mean you can't have whatever. Maybe he's had a bad day and that's all it was. Maybe. I don't think so for other stories with this guy, so it probably wasn't. But just saying, maybe it was. So for you to embody your brand, it means like what are you doing when someone just comes in up to you and just says, "How are you?" Like how do you look? Like for you, it's big because I was asking you, like how does this work for you at the gym when people come up to you? You know, you have this brand that you're upholding, kind of, but you also want to be genuine and not be fake. How do you do that? How does that work for you?
Before I even give you an example about myself, I'll give you an example of someone that I did meet that I had a good encounter with.
Okay. Yeah.
My one mentor that I met on my business trip I went on earlier this year. He's a fitness coach mentor that I had in the past. And when I met him, because I'd only built a relationship with him online for a long time. And so I went to an event that had over 150 people at it, right?
Okay, that's not too big, yeah.
Yeah, and they all paid good money to be there, right? And so when I went to the event, I got a chance to talk to one of the mentors for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a really, really real conversation. And he was precisely the person in person as he was online.
Yeah, right.
If anything, more raw.
Yeah,
right.
No, and that's great. Yeah.
And while his his opinions were good, I ended up actually disagreeing with some of his opinions and thoughts. But he was genuine in terms of the type of person that he was and what he shared. It was the same as what I would have expected it to be. And he
embodied his brand.
Yeah, and much. I thought that was really good. And I was like, wow, at the end of the day, I still disagreed with the drive and direction he was giving me. I was like, you know what? You were true to yourself. Similar to how the other mentor that I met who was there was also true to himself. I didn't get the same level of talking with him, but yeah. And then even bringing that back to me, what was the question again?
So like kind of like how do you embody your brand? So like when someone comes up to you in the gym, right? And like how are you? Like how like what's going on in your head when you're in those situations?
I was walking on the treadmill the other day, just finishing up my workout, and it was like 7 p.m. I'd been at the gym for like 3.5 hours because I had just done a session and then worked out, right? So I was like ready to go home and eat dinner, right? And the gym was pretty busy, and all of a sudden this person comes up to me that I'd chatted to in the past, again, only talked to at the gym. She walked up to me and she was like, "Sam, can you show me how to deadlift?" And she's like, I just do not know. She's like, if you don't want to show me, like that's whatever. And I was like, nah, of course I'll show you. I was like just cooling down. I was on my walk. So I just stopped my walk, went over and for about 10 minutes, I just showed her how to deadlift. Gave her a couple cues, couple tips, and she was really appreciative of it, right? She was like, well, okay, that's actually really, really helpful. She was like, thank you so much for taking your time to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's no problem. I don't really care. It's all good. Did I specifically like want to? I mean, I always like showing people stuff like that. So part of me is like, well, I don't really mind. But at the same time, I was hungry. I wanted to go home. But I was like,
but it also naturally came out of you because you're not like faking your way out there.
Exactly.
You're actually, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And so when someone asks you, it's like, as much as I don't really necessarily right now want to, because it's a thing that I like so much,
it really doesn't.
It's fine. And you could have also been like, you know what? Right now I'm exhausted. I'm hungry. Just to be honest with you, I'm going to have to go home. I'm not going to be able to do it right now.
Yeah.
But hey, next, because you're here all the time. I'm here all the time, basically, between these times. If you see me here again, please actually ask me. And if I remember, I'll even ask you and show you, and I will show you. But just right now, it's I'm so
and that could
hungry.
have been a possible answer as well.
And that would have been also embodying your brand, because you honestly responded. You honestly said where you're at. And you say, you know what? I'm sure you come here more often. I'm here all the time. You know that. You see me again, and I'm not in the middle of a client or something like that, and you see me around. I will. Just right now is a bad moment right now to do it. But otherwise, please do. Don't whatever.
She actually ended up booking a session with me afterwards.
So that's all part of how the brand embodying it works in your favor too. But it's also because people often misunderstand that as like the only motive is you're always there to, okay, I'm going to sell. You're always there.
No, it's not.
And of course, some people. And that's the real thing, because people do that. But then,
it's a very real thing.
But then it's very hard for that to happen, because then they're hungry, and that's going to try. Because you know what, it's not worth the. Because in their head, then it's like it's not worth the money.
Because now you have to weigh it.
Yeah, it's like, is it worth the money?
Weigh every decision.
There's like a small chance that maybe they'll sign all this work. Is it worth it right now? Nah, I'm hungry. It's like, no, sorry, I'm not going to be able to right now. Whatever. Just like I got something up, I got to go right away. So you can just make up an excuse like that, not actually be honest, and be like, yeah, sorry, I'm busy. I can't right now. I'm leaving in like 1 minute. I got something up right away. Whereas you don't actually, but you just whatever.
You just say it.
Say you do.
Whatever.
and I got a meeting like 2 minutes, I gotta go, so like whatever, and you can make that up, right? And that's what they would do. If it was just about money in that moment, you probably wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been worth the money in that moment because you're tired, you're hungry, and it wouldn't have been worth the small chance that maybe they sign. That wouldn't have been worth it in that moment. Probably you probably would have justified out of doing it then, but because it's just who you are, you like to do that, you just did it, and then it might actually end up making money anyway. But that's just a natural byproduct.
Yeah, it's a natural progression because I'm doing what I enjoy doing.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna help people when they ask questions. Like, there's been countless times I've been just about out the door leaving the gym and someone's like, hey Sam, can you renew my membership? And I'm like, yes I can.
Yes I can.
Yeah.
Will I?
Will I? That's a question.
Yeah.
Yes, I will. And, but yeah, so there's times like that, but I also just like building connections with people. So it's like,
well, and like for people that don't know Sam, like Sam is one of the most extroverted people I know in the world. So that does help for what you're doing.
I guess.
I'm pretty extroverted, and we traveled together. And when we traveled together, I realized that there is definitely a spectrum of extrovertedness. And though I am, above middle, I'm above middle towards the extrovert side. You are there's a whole other side that I didn't realize existed, and you're on that side where it gets further. And then there's also, it's the same with people who are introverted. I've met people like my wife, bit introverted, and then I met other people like my brother's wife, very introverted.
Yeah, spectrum.
And then there's people that are even more introverted than her. Like there's so much.
I mean, okay, so here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you about. I've come to a conclusion about myself with my extroversion.
A conclusion. Sam's conclusion about his extroversion.
I'm very opportunistic. So
see, that's a big word. That's back to the thing.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and what I mean by that is when I'm traveling, I'm going to double my extroversion because I'm traveling, and I'm going to sacrifice in turn my introversion-ness for the sake of I'm traveling for 14 days. I can live with less introverted satisfaction for 14 days.
But, yes, and you're right, but maybe I haven't told you. I also did that.
Okay.
So you were quadruple my normal. I was already double my normal. I absolutely, I get myself,
okay.
But I know what you're saying though. I get myself in a frame of mind. I'm traveling. I do the same thing. Like the amount of time, because I was still largely with people all the time.
Oh, of course.
Too, right?
Vast majority, yeah.
My only thing was I like to have some mornings to myself. I remember that being the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that
was the thing.
I need some mornings to myself. Not every, but most mornings to myself. But then every afternoon and evening with people. Whereas my normal life, it's like evenings with people, sometimes an evening to myself. Afternoons, I'm usually working by myself. I have a lot of alone time here, which honestly, with my job being working by myself, I have too much on my own time when I'm at home. But either way, it's okay. I just needed weekends. I'm always seeing people, like that's a big thing. But weekdays, not as much. That's my normal life, and that's pretty good. As long as I'm always seeing people on the weekends, and I get the occasional thing during the week, I'm pretty good. And then the daytimes, I have a lot of time by myself. Out there is like a morning on my own, and then I have meet people all the time. Otherwise,
the entire
and so that already is double.
Yeah,
what my normal is.
That's fair.
And then I know that when you're traveling, obviously you're even more than when you're at home. I know that for sure. But I'm saying even my double, you were double that yet even, which is crazy because even in the mornings, you're like you couldn't help but meet 10 more people. Like it was just so funny. It was so funny how that kept happening.
So much fun.
Like we were hanging out, and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna go for a walk and read my book, whatever, audiobook stuff, whatever. Just hang out and go sit on this nice bench and look at the beautiful whatever.
Yeah.
We were in Scotland.
It was in Edinburgh.
At Edinburgh. And then you were like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that too.
I know exactly.
5 seconds later, you meet someone, you're chatting, and you go on like a photo shoot with them.
Okay, so no, that's you're thinking of two different times. You're thinking of two
there was that
times.
one, but then there was also those other guys that you met when you're on your walk. You met these two guys as well.
What happened was...
And then I saw you guys talking.
On the morning walk that I went on, that was the day that you were like, Sam, I'm going to do my own thing in the morning. I'm going to go for a walk. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. I'm going to go for a walk too. Yeah. I ended up sitting next to this like lady on a bench.
See, this is how many there are. There's 3 different times
and that's when we found this connection that apparently her grandson lived in Winnipeg.
Oh, okay.
And we found this whole connection.
Okay.
The other time,
forgot about that one.
The other time with the photo shoot, that was you were like, I just need we will meet at lunch. You were like, I don't want to see you until lunch, Sam.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going to have breakfast, and I saw this guy, and I chatted with him, and I found out he was from Vancouver, and I found out the girl he was with was from Vancouver. They were like a year younger than me, and then I ended up finding out that he was like a professional photographer. Yeah. And then we ended up just eating breakfast together
and doing a photo shoot.
And then we did a whole because then you came back.
But you did the photo shoot without me, though.
Yes, but you came back before that while we were still at the hostel.
Right,
And,
yeah.
you had met them.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, yeah, hey, you know, I was like, oh, Dylan, yeah, we're thinking of going to do XYZ thing. This morning, do you want to join? You're like, I'm going to go to a bookstore. You're just like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to
Yeah,
go
but
do
this is
that.
an example. Like, I was already, I'd reached my limit at
Yeah.
that moment, and
Yeah.
you were ready to go do a photo shoot.
Yeah,
and I was
have
like,
the photos. I have the photos.
I know, and it's cool and all, and it's not
cool.
even a judgment. It's just like that's just
Yeah.
it's just difference of people.
great.
It's kind of a little bit of a side note here, but it is all part of. I guess this is bringing it back here. It is part of embodying your brand. You have to keep in mind who you are as well when you're embodying a brand. Like you can't just, if you're not that extrovert, you can't become that person.
Yeah.
Like someone, especially more like my wife Cora, like she would never be able to do what you do. It's just not her. She could do it maybe, but she'd be faking it, and it would be more in that way. It would be more she has to really force it and fake it. It wouldn't work properly. Not saying she couldn't be a trainer, but she'd be a different type of trainer than what you are.
Yeah, of course.
It would just
Yeah.
look different.
Yeah.
Like she might be really, really personable and more empathetic than you are with the one-on-one thing because she's just really good at that kind of stuff. In some way, that's her own unique thing. I don't know. But when she's out around, it'd be headphones on, and then she would just. But she'd be honest with you, like, hey, just so you know, like when I'm in the gym. And I need my time to myself, and she let
Yeah.
people know that, and they know
Yeah.
that, and she'd be nice about it and all that. But that would just be how she would have to do it.
And there's times I wish I was more like that.
And that would be her brand in a way. Be like, yeah,
Totally.
Cora. She when it's time for her to talk with you, she is giving it your all. Her all. I'm making this up. This is not at all what she does. I'm just guessing, right?
Of course,
but
yeah.
I'm saying a person like that who's a bit more, first of all, who's a female, and then a little bit more on the introverted side. I could see him being like just very nice. Like, yeah, I really when I'm at the gym and like all the clients, I really like I like to put my headphones on and I just do my thing, and that's kind of how it is. And at the end, when I take my headphones off, if you want to chat with me, go ahead, and I'll chat a little bit as I head out. But that's just kind of I need my time to recharge. That's my time to recharge.
Yeah.
I could see that being a thing.
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure sometimes probably days that you like that as well, but you're unfortunately, and also just naturally, because I've been with you at the gym now a few times, you just naturally do that whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
It's
No,
not
and
even. It's not even. You haven't control yourself. It just happens.
It
It's
just
kind of like
happens.
out of
Yes.
the traveling. That's why I relate to the
Precisely.
traveling because
Precisely.
it just happens.
It does.
But that's a good thing. That means that's who
Yeah.
you are.
Exactly. Yeah, of course, right.
So it all works.
There's days where I'm out of my norm, and those are the days where I don't take my headphones off, right?
Right, and that's fine to have that. There's nothing wrong with having
of course.
that. Yeah.
But I often do take notice of it, where I'm like, normally I'm like, oh, I have that like read that pull to go like talk to the person before they leave it. I'm like, nah, I don't want to, and I just don't. And it
Makes
happens,
sense.
yeah. Oftentimes because other life things, or just maybe I'm upset with something or stressed about something, so I'm like, I just don't want to friggin' deal with another person right now, right? And that can always happen too.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on to the next piece here. I thought this was pretty interesting, and maybe we could get a little bit more practical with this piece. But you've done this, so I'd be interested to hear a bit about how you've seen these impact what you've done with your personal training, and then also we're hoping to use them with our podcast, so we'll be experimenting with these as well. But you're the one that has a bit more experience with it than I do, so I'd be curious what you have to say. So he kind of said about how to communicate your brand story. Now this is actually about getting it out there, getting the word out there about your brand. And they kind of put it into 3 categories, which I thought was pretty cool. There's owned media, which is like your Instagram page. There's earned media, which basically is like word of mouth, but it also works online where people like just naturally they share your
It's like also,
stories.
like, my transformations.
Well, like that's still
Or-
on your Instagram. So earned media is like you had nothing to do with it. This person just
sure.
your
Okay.
client, that
Yeah.
one client that just keeps on sharing stuff and getting you more
Yep.
clients
Yep.
because they just love what you do,
Yep.
and you offer also a thing to help with them because like if they go and they advertise for you, then you get some extra training and stuff. Like whatever, just this stuff where other people just because of what you're doing, they just believe in it and they just go and they just you earned it. They just bring it out there. You did nothing. You just earned that pit. That bit of stuff. That's a really cool thing, and really, it's just that's the technological version of saying word of mouth. So like
Totally,
when people just
yeah.
know you around town, and you're the plumber that everyone knows, that's word of mouth. That's just earned. You
Sure,
just, you've
okay,
earned
yeah.
the respect of the town. Whereas on Instagram, it's a bit different because it's online.
AI.
But there is also an earned aspect that just kind of get people to share it. People
Yeah.
kind of just talk about you.
Yeah, because realistically, the majority of my followers are local. Right.
Yeah, and that is
So-
word of mouth.
Exactly,
Probably
yeah.
physically word of mouth also,
Yeah.
not just the online version of it. But yeah, that's what earned media is. And then there's paid media, which is pretty simple. It's, we're going more to the realm of ads and paying for things, or getting someone to, doing a brand deal with someone that they go and they talk about your stuff and you
Yeah.
give them something in return, whatever, more paid for things. So I guess what I'm curious about, we'll start with just like the first one. How has, yeah, I guess if you go back to the beginning and stuff, how has having your own, like, or your owned media, like with your Instagram, if you were to, I know this could be a whole episode, but just if you just summarize a bit, like, how has that changed your brand and your life with your business, just in using
So how
your
is my
own
Instagram
your
really-
Instagram and the different things that you've started doing? If you were to just kind of summarize what that looked like and how that kind of has changed everything.
Well, I mean, my business wouldn't exist.
Yeah, I know it's a
without
big one. Yeah,
Instagram, right? Like, Instagram is my business card. It is the driving factor to which people find my business. It was the driving factor which brings in the majority of the revenue that keeps my business going. Like, what happens is I post my content. My goal with my content is to make it so that anyone who can actually watch my videos, anyone who watches my videos consistently, can actually see the result that they're looking for, right? If they're the right person who's following me, if they're my ideal avatar, if they're the person that I like to work with and that I want to work with, they should be able to absolutely achieve their goal without ever hiring me. They should be able to have every sort of piece that they actually need of the puzzle to see the result they want to see, right? And they shouldn't have to pay me for that, and that's the goal. And so
that's very interesting. Yeah,
right. And so what happens is they have every perfect part of their plan, and they still don't know how to put it together. They're still not being accountable for putting
That's where
it
the
together.
coaching part comes in.
They are not
Yeah.
trusting themselves, and they know that if they did this, it could probably work. But it's just but it hasn't worked in the past, and I just don't trust it. So then they don't do it, and that's where, like, my actual brand comes in, right? And that's where my business comes in, right?
The extra step. Yeah, the
Exactly,
extra help,
right? But that, I've done, in the over 2 years now, 2 years and 3-ish months that I've been running my business, I've ran $35 in paid ads, right?
Right.
That's the extent of it. And part of it worked, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And I think if I did paid ads, I don't know. It's whatever. I don't really care for paid ads that much. I know it'll be something to go into.
At one point you were thinking that maybe it was going to be a helpful thing, but you've kind of changed your mind about
I think
it.
it can be helpful if I take advantage of it.
You have to use it in the right way.
Yeah, if I used it in the right way.
Launch certain things.
Yeah, like, I think that there's ways that I will use it in the future.
Yeah.
But just as a general piece, I think I'd need to make some adjustments and, like, learn it a little bit more to make it really worthwhile. And while $35 is really not really
No.
it's, in the grand scheme, it's like nothing, right?
Yeah. And that's why it's crazy. It'd be cool to talk to someone that's really, really used ads, because I know people, they talk about how they of like their budget for what they're selling. It's like hundreds of thousands of their budget of their like big $1 million project. A third of it is like just in ad spend.
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy. Yeah,
and
I
like,
listen to podcasts where they say their monthly budget for ads is $50,000.
yeah, so it's like hundreds of thousands they spend on ads, and that's like a big part of their expense is just the fact that they're using ads. I'm like, holy, I didn't never even thought about that.
Yeah,
and it's like that's just a wild thing to me to think about, especially as a product based business, because like you're really working with such tight margins, so you're spending so much. But they're mostly service based businesses.
Yes,
and that's the difference, because you get one person, you got one sales a lifetime thing, but it also works with products, because if you get someone that likes your product, then they'll come back. So then, it does work with products
one
too.
person is more than just a $5 product.
Yeah, it's their
potentially 10, and then it's potentially their friends liking it, and then it's their friends buying it, and it's
whatever that term is for lifetime value.
Exactly. Yeah,
whatever, there's like an acronym for that.
It's hard to justify, or not justify. It's hard to visualize what one person can truly bring in.
Yeah,
because there's different levels of people. There's people who bring in a community of people. There's people that just enjoy something themselves.
Yeah,
and then there's people that'll just buy something once.
And that's why I'm excited to be launching this podcast and actually being on top of it, and also my seasoning brand, because now I can actually watch and see what's going on with people. Whereas like right now with me selling on Amazon like I do, I really have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to see who my audience is, who the people are that actually are following this. And it's just a little bit confusing. It's a little bit difficult to figure that out.
You don't have that relatability or the connectivity to a person, to a brand.
Yeah, Yeah.
anything.
So, but I do know that like my sales are incredibly consistent, and so I know that there's people, and I've looked at some, and I can see some repeat customers like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And especially as you build a brand, Amazon does let you do like brand analytics and stuff, but only for
Makes
your
sense.
brand. So it's like it's not for every brand.
Oh, so yeah, okay.
And so
Yeah.
like as I get my own brands going more, I'll be able to see a lot more. But like it's just interesting how that works. I've looked at it, and like there's no way that I have these consistent sales unless there are people that are consistently buying these things over and over again and telling people about it, because otherwise it feels almost unreal that all these things keep selling. And it's like I keep buying them, they keep selling. How do they keep selling? How do people know about it? Is it? And in my head, I was like, it's a new person every time. Like, no, it's probably the same person telling other people, and then they buy again. And then there is this because there is a huge effect. I mean, obviously Amazon advertises it more, but like you can advertise things and then it still can't sell. So it depends on what the item is.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think more than you think is new customers, because it's on Amazon. It's hard to search for. No, if you're recommending a product to me, right, on Amazon, you're not telling me the buyer to go buy it from.
No, and it may not be from me, but the listing, I mean.
Totally, yeah.
So like there might be 5,000 listing, and I might not get the sale every time, but the same people are coming back to that listing.
Yeah, but I think whether or not they end up buying yours or the other person who's selling the same thing could be more arbitrary.
Could be.
Right?
I do have a number of comments where they say buy from my name. They'll
they
actually
do.
say it because they know other people have had more issues with stuff. I've been so there, but that's a small amount. I do think you're right. I do agree with that. They're not buying from me, but it's the listing.
It's like you should buy this 3-pack of these products. I got to try it that day, and that was really, really good.
Yeah.
And so then they'll search up that pack, right? And that's most likely going to lead to you and maybe one other person, right? And they'll be like, oh, this one's actually cheaper right now, and it happens to be yours, and then they buy yours.
That part is arbitrary. The part that's not is that like these listings, like there's some listings that I'm the only person on them, for example, because no one else has them. I made the listing, and so they're just it's not my product, but it's just my listing basically. People could go on it too, but just.
Then they need to copy the thing.
They have to go and find the thing too and stuff, and some of them just don't find the items I have. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I just have so many of them. I make them all the time, so there's always listings I'm on my own on. Or on my own, there's some scammer that has it at like $100 more than it's worth, and then there's me. It's like buy for $139 plus shipping, or pay $39.99.
My gosh!
And it's Amazon Prime shipping. It's like, okay, which one am I going to do, right? Anyway, and the guy has like 2 reviews, and he's like, or he has a lot of reviews that are all bad. But anyway, I wonder why. So anyway, so basically. I don't exactly know how that's happening or who it is, but I do have as I'm going forward now. I used to think it was all new customers, but as I've been looking at it and thinking about it, and I have looked at some examples of repeat people, I'm like, I do think that some of these people are real people telling their real friends, and then they actually go and buy it, and there's no way of tracking that. I have no way of knowing that, but I just think that is. I'm almost certain it does happen because of how many comments I get of people that, I mean, there's negative comments too, but there's also all the positive ones. And then there's also people I can just see that they've ordered it every month. They keep coming back. So there is that also. But the part that's hard to see is like, who are they telling? And I know that there's going to be some of that happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just no way that these things keep happening, and that all of a sudden one item just they all just start selling all of a sudden one day. Like one sells and all of a sudden 8. Like, well, how would that come from? And some of it's algorithm based, but some of it doesn't quite. I look at some stats, it doesn't quite make sense. Why did that one? It looks different than this one.
I mean, it's also. I mean, you can also look at Instagram posts, right? And you can say, why did this Instagram video get friggin' 15,000 views?
Yeah,
but the one that I actually really liked, the one that was I thought was really valuable, got 500.
The views I think are more arbitrary than sales, because sales are people actually putting their credit card information and buying an item,
of course, yeah.
versus just a view. But yeah, you're right. With the views, it feels a lot more arbitrary.
It feels
but even that, like, I mean, we've been pretty happy with we just started our Instagram now, and so by the time we post this, we will have been going for quite a while, actually. But at this present moment in real life here, we just started it, and it's like, man, we're getting a decent amount of views for each one. We're getting between, I mean, for us just as newer people, it's like between 1,000 and 2,000 is pretty good to start off with each
Absolutely,
reel.
yeah.
And it's like, and I do think a part of it has to do with that I like to think that it's because people think that what we're saying is interesting and has some kind of a value and a meaning to it. And so if that is the case, then that's awesome. And then that also reflects it. But also, there are people out there that will make something and it just won't hit the algorithm right.
Of course.
But that's why you got to be consistent and keep doing it.
Yep.
Right? As you said before too. Like, it just, I know with what you do, it's just constantly posting and constantly doing it. Because then if you keep doing something well, eventually you get noticed.
Exactly. And
the algorithm tends to work that way, and yeah, that's what we're kind of going for with that. So
absolutely.
So anyway, the other questions are kind of more just based on like it goes into like socializing your brand, which is kind of what we're talking about right now anyway. There's more details about that. And then it just ends up with just reevaluating and adjusting it and stuff. So those are more just like general things that you could do. Like once you finish this, you would go and you would use this last bit to kind of like look over everything, do a summary, kind of get over.
Absolutely.
But so they're not like a whole thing to talk about. It's just kind of like that's just kind of like where it wraps up in the end there. But yeah, I think those are some interesting points you can take into. Well, obviously we jumped all over the place. You can use it for your personal life. You can use it for your relationships. You can use it, and obviously this is technically geared towards business, but it's something that is really helpful. And even if you don't want to have a brand, just to know this, I think it will help you just to carry yourself in your job, in your life.
I think everything like that. I think it's all applicable to those areas.
Yeah,
because it still involves you in improving your actual business. It might not be your business, but it's going to be a business that you're a part of, right? And because you're a part of it, you have some sort of influence, whether you think you do or not, because even the people at the bottom of the tier list doing the more mundane tasks are still the ones literally running the business.
Yeah.
Right. So you still have say in how that process goes. You still have say in how, you treat yourself and how you treat your work and how you can maybe move up in that ladder. Right.
Yeah.
And so, anything in this concept, in this podcast will be able to lead you to be critically aware and think about how you can make yourself better positioned for those types of things.
Yeah. And for one final encouragement with this, basically, the goal of this would be to help you realize that you're more valuable than you think you are.
Absolutely.
And that because like, if this doesn't bring you to the conclusion that, like, if you end up going through this stuff and thinking that you're just a piece of crap, then you're definitely just doing a very bad negative mindset. That's not what this is supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's supposed to bring you to be like, wow, well, like this, I can actually provide value here. I'm actually pretty good at this. This is actually where I kind of shine or thrive in this area. And so, if anything, just use this as a way to kind of just find out what makes you unique, what makes you you, and what makes you awesome. So,
what a lighthearted way to end the episode.
Yeah, I think that's a great spot to end.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you very much for watching or listening. And we're just going to keep on going here, keep on making episodes.